Brilliance Audio presents The Orphan of Salt Winds by Elizabeth Brooks, performed by Helen Lloyd. The child held on to Clem's hand throughout the bus ride. There were lots of stops, and the brakes were jerky, and after an hour she murmured, "I feel sick." Back at Sinclair House it would have been a risky admission, but Clem didn't seem cross at all. "Nearly there," he said, elbowing her as he rummaged in his coat pocket. "See if you can't hold on another 10 minutes. She nodded as Clem blew the fuzz off a mint imperial and pressed it into her mitten. She was glad to have the new mittens when they got off the bus. Clem didn't wear gloves, but his hands had the impervious look of old leather, so perhaps they repelled the cold by themselves. Apparently, Lorna had knitted the mittens specially for her, and they'd bought the coat brand new last Saturday from the big department store in town. It was navy blue, with a square collar like a sailor's, and it was a bit tight at her shoulders, but thank goodness she hadn't got sick on it. She shivered as the bus pulled away, and Clem said, "Warm enough?" She nodded, and he stooped to straighten her scarf, which had got tangled with the strap on her gas mask box. The child hadn't been outside without her gas mask for months, not since the start of the war. Everyone was supposed to carry one, in case the Nazis dropped poison gas bombs. The government had said so. At the orphanage, you got a proper telling off if you went anywhere without one, so Virginia was troubled and impressed to see that Clem had left his at home. The bus had dropped them by an old church, with a tower like a stubby finger pointing at the sky, and a sign that said St. Dunstan's, Tollbury Point. The little girl turned slowly, taking in the bare trees and the whitewashed cottages, and tried to guess which one was her new home. Most of the cottages already had their blackout curtains drawn. One risked an uncurtained window and an open fire, and looked the nicest in the raw dusk. But Clem adjusted his hold on her slippery mitten, picked up the suitcase, and led her away, down a different road. Beyond the village, the silence was immense. At Sinclair House there'd been no such thing as silence, even when Matron ordered it. There'd been too many children, and too many echoes in the tall, bare rooms. Clem didn't seem one for talking. When they were trudging down the drive away from Sinclair House, he'd said, "Best do the buttons up on that coat, Virginia," and she'd obeyed. But perhaps she should have smiled as well, or made some reply, because he'd not said anything after that, not until the mint imperial. When they were on the bus, and now, as they were walking along the road, she kept trying to scrutinize his face without being noticed. It wasn't easy. He kept catching her eye and winking. Clem nodded at a woman on a bicycle, and they pressed into the hawthorn hedge as a tractor rattled by with an empty trailer. There wasn't much traffic. While they were walking, the afternoon became evening, and when Clem said, "Here we are," she was puzzled. She thought there must be a tiny house hidden in the hedgerow, and looked for it warily all along the verge, but all she saw was a narrow road turning onto a potholed lane. The lane was bounded by a low wall, and she knew then where the great silence was coming from. Virginia stood on tiptoe to see the silence beyond the wall. What she saw was a silhouette bird perched a great distance away on a tilting wooden post, amid horizontal strips of earth, air and water, black and pearl and grey. She saw an emptiness that she could taste on her tongue, although it wasn't the sea. She moistened her chapped lips and gathered herself to ask her first question.